Hey everyone, it's Kenlyn and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about being hijacked. There's a lot of astrology that points to why we're feeling so overwhelmed and scattered. I just heard it inside my groups. I'm feeling it myself. So I think it's worth making a video on how to avoid becoming hijacked. Now, I'm going to talk about two different ways. And I want to presence first that the thing that you have that everyone wants, the big everyone, the big collective, the advertising, the marketing is your attention and your life force energy. That's really what money buys. So think of those two things as your currency, as your gems, your greatest possession that you could either feed yourself and the things you care about and the people you care about, or you can go down a rabbit hole and feed the collective unconsciousness. Those are choices we have. You know, we don't have a lot of control over things. If you've noticed, the older I get, the more I notice how I don't have much control, but I do have choice. And that choice always boils down to what am I going to feed? So let's start off with the first kind of hijacking. And that's this hijacking that I notice when there's so much going on. There's a lot of distraction energy. And it's not just that because there's always a lot going on. It's that my attention is thinned. It feels not focused. It feels on the surface, almost like anxious or fluttering. And there's so much stuff out there, and yet I can't concentrate on the one thing. So in that scenario, and that's a very much a full moon scenario because it's lighting up so much and the collective is lit up. Remember, full moons, the sun lighting up the moon, your conscious awareness. So you're aware of more. Maybe you're getting lots of insights. Maybe they're just coming like a flood. Maybe you're feeling all the feels and it's coming at you like a flood because there's so much going on. Remember the Cardinal Grand Cross. Remember, we have Venus in Scorpio, her last day tomorrow. Thank the goddess. I'm sure she's ready to get out of there. Or I'm ready for her to get out of there and move into my sun sign. There's also Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces. That's got some very interesting qualities around deception and illusion and being obfuscated, not seeing clearly. We got Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. Gemini, the sign of communication, but also the sign of the mind. It's air, it's ideas. It's so many ideas that we can get hijacked. So today in the Creators Academy, the sisters were saying like, oh my goddess, let's talk about being hijacked and the ways that we can avoid it. So they were asking me about my schedule, and I have to say, I'm working my edge here. And how I work my edge is I shut the phone off and I install things on my laptop so that I can work on WhatsApp because I have international teams. And I also can work on Slack with the international teams through my laptop and not the place where it's easy to press a button to get into Facebook or Instagram or to check my emails or text messages. So sometimes we just literally have to exercise the discipline that we would give to a younger child by removing the stimulation, shut it down, turn it off. You know that you can take apps off your phone and then reinstall them. That's to create some boundary lines, some containment for the exercise of your will for what do you want to feed. So when I'm tempted to allow myself to get hijacked by perhaps wanting to comment on someone's social media in such a way because they are triggering me or their post is meant to instigate some kind of controversy. It could be like a conspiracy theory or something that I want to add my voice to. I step back and I do that offer up practice that I talked about under the full moon and realize this is my life force energy. And do I want to give it to that conversation, which isn't really a conversation because it's happening over social. So I'm not seeing that person's face. And you know that when we're not in presence, the rules are different. And we tend to say things that we would never say to a person's face. So I have to exercise the discipline. But the way I do it is not by saying, don't do this thing. I say, is that really where you want to put your life force energy, your attention? Like you only have so much of it during a day, right? There's only so much of the time I'm on, and then I'm winding down or I'm going to bed. You know, in the seasons of Ayurveda, the constitutions of Vata, Kapha, and Pitta, those three constitutions. Whereas Vata, Kapha is earth and water, and Pitta is fire energy. So those same energies follow the wheel of our day, the 24-hour cycle. So there are times when you have the most focused energy, and that's a Pitta time of day. That's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So sometimes that time of day is going to be the best time for your attention, your focus. And if you're pissing it away, I'm just going to say it, by scrolling social media just because you want to either escape the pain of having to do something you think you don't want to do for your business or taxes or whatever it is, then you have to ask yourself, do I want to give my life force energy to this? And sometimes there's times to scroll because you want to know what your friends are doing. You want to know what's going on. Maybe you need to contain that by 20 minutes, set the timer, and then you are just done. It's done. It's over. I think that those same rules we give to kids who are playing on games, that they work for adults too. So remembering that we're just of the same mind, and we get to model that kind of behavior by asking ourselves that question: what do I want to feed? And most of the time I choose that I want to feed my own business because I have things I want to do. I want to feed my life because I want to work out and I want to play pickleball. I haven't played that yet, but I really want to. I'm setting up my first time to play in November. So things that are important to me, in other words, I want to put my attention there. I want to meet people there. So it comes down to that choice. Now, the second place where we're hijacked is when we're the ones hijacked by a narrative. There's a whole thing out there about narrative warfare, which I'm curious to dive into because it seems like social media lends itself to narrative warfare. Things spread virally that they don't pass the rules of evidence. And me as a former lawyer, you know, I don't often buy those things because I don't believe things that are not experienced firsthand. If someone just shares their theory on something and then that theory gets shared over and over and over again, that doesn't make it so. That's just a theory that someone has coming from their mind. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I come down to is, do I want to put my energy there? Do I want to put my life force energy there? Do I want to put my attention? So again, it's limited. I don't have an unlimited supply because I sleep, you know, and I do other things in my life. So let's say you have, I don't know, let's say every day you have 4 or 5 solid hours of attention. That's it. And the rest is spent on other things. Where do you want to spend that? And I also notice that the people who are spreading those things, who I see them as hijacked, and the reason I see them as hijacked is because they use terms that are very black and white, like this side is evil and this side is good. They may not even explicitly say that this side is good, but that's an implication. Whenever you're saying something is evil, you're by its polarity nature saying that something else is good. And that paradigm right away is bullshit. Why? Because we are all things. There isn't anything like separately out there as 100% black and 100% white, 100% evil, 100% good. So that duality, that stark duality, is incorrect. Go watch the movie, 2006 Academy Award winner called Crash. Remember that? Maybe you're not old enough, but that was a great movie. And it starts off, as I recall, I haven't watched it recently, but it starts off with this scene. And you're thinking, wow, these guys are so great. They're saving some, there was like some kind of an accident, and these guys showed up and did something good. Okay, they're the good guys. Well, then later, as the story unfolds in all these vignettes, we see that those guys are actually traffickers in children. They're not the good guys. Oh, but then they did a good act over here. So it really destroys that paradigm of 100% good, 100% evil. I don't buy into it. And I think what happens when we embrace that is we become what we despise. So if you're over here wanting to be a light worker, wanting to do good, and then you start attacking viewpoints or people, really it's happening to people, attacking people as being evil. And I've seen it inside my group, and I had to shut that down immediately. Because what's happening is you're projecting your shadow and you're becoming who you despise. And so that's another way that we're hijacked. And I'm not going to perpetuate a hijacked model by sharing it all over social media. Even if I think it's right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in and I'm going to dig into that issue. You know, that's what happened in 2001. I had gone to India and I knew nothing about child sex trafficking. And I saw the way that poor children were handled, like infants, babies. And they weren't trafficked in front of my eyes, but I saw them at rail stations at 5 a.m., just slung over their little brother's shoulder. And my whole body, I mean, it was my first entree into like, this is how some of the world lives. And I had never seen that before. So it really opened my eyes. And I got the hit that I wanted to work. I wanted to do something about it. And this is what I think is the antidote, is not being an armchair conspiracy theorist. Get your ass on the mat. And I didn't even know about conspiracies or anything. I just knew, like, oh my God, I want to help people. And I was working through my own issues of whatever, whatever, maybe lifetimes. So I came back home, and it was my inner prayer, like, what can I do? I opened the paper of the Boulder County Business Report, and there was a photograph of two women, and they had started Free a Child about 3 years prior. And I called them and I said, you're not going to believe me, but I'm supposed to work with you. And they left me a message saying, we believe you. Let's meet for tea. I get chills saying that, because seriously, they're some of my best friends, even now, over how many years later, 23 years later. I love those sisters. We did our work inside of that. I supported a program in Nepal to stop the trafficking of children, and then also started one in Denver. So I got more joy out of being on the mat than I ever have going down YouTube, TikTok, Facebook rabbit holes. Way more joy. So notice that in yourself. If you're following things, maybe about the man-made weather that's caused Asheville's thing, or chemtrails, or celebrities, or whatever it is, if you're feeling like you're hijacked, it's time to take your power back and check in. Is this a cause that I want to give myself to? Because you'll find more joy being on the mat, working with people, than you will being online, sitting on your couch at 11 o'clock at night, scrolling. Yuck. That ruins your dopamine. It doesn't set you up for the next day, and you end up feeling like crap. And I'm going to end on this, because it's even worse than that. The consequences are worse than that. This is a personal story. My aunt died of alcoholism almost a year ago. And some of you know that. I've put that out there. And one of the things her kids told me this, that every time that she would watch the news. I'm kind of stuttering over my words about it because it's so devastating. But when she would watch the news, she would go from a happy person connected to her family to a very angry person who would even cuss out her family. She was like a Jekyll and Hyde. So I believe she was feeding her life force energy to that collective energy that I'm not going to name. You already know, the channel she was watching, and you probably understand the narratives that were going on. But that narrative warfare cost her her life. Because instead of choosing to hold back her energy, she was gripped. And that gripping took her life. It made her numb out so that she didn't have to feel the pain of whatever that was that got brought up. So we don't want to go down that path, and we don't want to support people. If you're listening to this, I don't think you want to support people going down that path either. So that's why it's really important to manage your own side of the fence, your own mind. Are you getting hijacked? Are you participating in someone else getting hijacked? And how can you take your attention and your life force energy and bring it back to you? This is a great exercise for the next 3 months to really work that edge, because when the signs change and we go into air and fire, I think our heads are going to be spinning. So we already want to have seeded the practices that are going to carry us forward into a world that's way more dominated by AI and that's bombarding us with narratives. Thankfully, or maybe not so thankfully, I don't know, Pluto will move off 29 degrees of Pisces, which is the sign of being a mystic, but also the sign of being an addict and delusional. And we'll move into Aries. That's going to be a whole different energy signature. So this is why I'm saying, and pay attention on this channel, because we're going to talk more and more about this, of how we can be prepared as feminine leaders for the future, because the future energy signature is nothing like where we're at right now. So we're in prep mode. And that's why I wanted to make this video. All right, sending you lots of love.